Hello, everyone. We've all probably heard the story of the bundle of chopsticks, how a single chopstick can easily be broken, but a bundle is nearly impossible to snap. It's a story that highlights the strength of unity. However, today's story takes place in a different context. Each chopstick in the bundle is only about 23 centimeters long, yet the challenge is to bridge a gap that is around 40 centimeters wide without using any additional materials. First, we'll take a few chopsticks and cut them into several equal-sized segments. Next, we take 10 other chopsticks and carve U-shaped notches at both ends on one side, and add one more notch in the middle on the opposite side, aligned with the two U-shaped cuts. I'll do the same with the other 9 chopsticks. Once we finish, we'll have 2 different types of chopstick pieces, each with carved indentations, as you can see here. Now, we place 2 long chopsticks parallel to each other, then lay a short piece horizontally across them in the middle. Next, we place 2 more long chopsticks on top, with one end resting on the horizontal piece. We then lift the 2 lower ends and insert another short piece that fits into the U-shaped notches. We'll keep repeating this process, placing 2 pieces, lifting the ends, and inserting a horizontal piece. After doing this with all 10 long chopsticks, we end up with a 5-tiered structure that looks like a bridge spanning a river. The chopsticks have interlocked with each other without the need for any additional materials. The total length from one end to the other is about 60 centimeters, nearly 3 times the length of a single chopstick, enough to bridge the 40 centimeters gap as originally challenged. If you want to lift an object, typically, you would tie a rope directly to it and pull it up. This is the simplest method, but the pulling force will be as heavy as the weight of the object. However, if you use a pulley to hook onto the heavy object, and then thread the rope through the pulley's roller and tie the other end of the rope to a fixed point above, you will feel the load become lighter, and the weight will only be about half of the original weight. In this dynamic pulley system, when you suspend the heavy object this way, the object's weight is distributed between both sides of the rope. Therefore, when you pull on one side of the rope, you are only pulling half the weight of the object. For the next experiment, we will use a plastic bottle, peel off its label, and cut off the bottom. Then, drill a hole in the cap, thread a clear plastic tube through the hole from the outside, and seal it tightly. Next, we will tie the bottle vertically to a wooden stick, bend the tube to one side, and tie it to another stick. Remember to make sure the tube's end is slightly higher than the top of the bottle's opening. Now, we will take some water and add a little green dye to make it more visible, and pour it into the bottle. You will see that as the water in the bottle rises, the water level in the tube also rises to the same height. No matter how you raise or twist the tube, the water level in the tube does not change and remains level with the water in the bottle. This is the principle of communicating vessels. In a system of communicating vessels filled with the same liquid at rest, the liquid levels at the branches will always be at the same height. By applying this principle, it has been used to determine the height of columns when building houses. If you have 2 wooden posts set at a significant distance apart and want to ensure they are the same height, you can use a long plastic tube, fill it with water, and place one end of the tube on the first post so that the water level in the tube is level with the top of the post. Then, check the water level in the tube at the other post. If the water level is lower than the top of the second post, it means the second post is higher than the first by that amount. You will need to lower it until both posts are level. This method has been used in construction for a long time, and occasionally you may see it used in construction projects. In this experiment, we need 2 syringes, a small one, 5 milliliters, and a larger one, 20 milliliters. First, we will draw a quantity of water into the large syringe, attach a piece of plastic tubing, and let the water flow through the tube. Then, connect it to the small syringe, pump water up to the top of the syringe, and insert the piston. Next, I will build a wooden stand with upright posts. We will place the syringes between the posts so that their ends are positioned at both ends of the wooden stick, and then tie everything in place with string. Now, we have created the simplest hydraulic system. I will also place 2 paper cups on the piston to start the experiment. Since the friction of the syringe is quite high, I will compensate for this by adding some weight to the cup on the smaller piston side until it begins to move downward. Once both sides are balanced, if you add about 200 grams of water to the cup on the larger piston side, you will only need around 78 grams on the smaller piston side to lift the same amount of weight. In this experiment, the inner diameter of the small syringe is 1.3 centimeters, and the large syringe is 2.1 centimeters. When we apply a force of 78 grams on the small piston, It will generate a pressure of 78 divided by the cross-sectional area of the small syringe. This pressure is transmitted unchanged to the large piston and creates an upward force equal to the pressure multiplied by the area of the large syringe. In this case, it creates a lifting force of up to 203 grams, which is nearly 2.6 times greater. Therefore, in a hydraulic system, with the same weight to be lifted, when the piston has a smaller diameter, the force needed to lift it becomes lighter.